But we start today with the moment to remind everyone today's show is brought to us by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And today's winning ticket comes from our guy, Rakistan1187, who won $715 on a $10 8-leg same-game parlay.
Nice.
From Game 1 of the Celtics-Pacers overtime thriller. He hit the over on Nesmith, McConnell, Siakam, and Halliburton. Their alternate points, $10 turned into $715. Big-time win for Rakistan1187. If you have a winning ticket, as always, make sure you guys send it in to us.
That's a nice one.
It's a great one. Jay, we'll get back to the JB stuff in a sec, but
Yep.
we got to start with Koby Altman because he is speaking to the media here. He's about to get underway in about 3 minutes. So I figured we know JB's out, and it appears Koby Altman will be safe because he's speaking to the media today, and if he was out as well,
They wouldn't put him out there if they were going to fire him.
That'd be a weird situation. But my question is, should Koby be safe? Has he earned the right to keep his job as general manager, director of basketball operations, whatever title you want to actually give him? So I went back, and on Monday, Earl asked to go through and look at all his moves so we can kind of have a better context of what Koby's done since he's taken over the Cavs franchise in 2017. And I tried to simplify these. Pro Basketball Reference breaks them up year by year, not season by season. So it's 2017, 2018, 2019. Some of these interchange seasons, but this is the simplified version of what Koby Altman's done. If you want more explanation on any of these moves, just ask. I'll give you the exact details. But in 2017, when he took over, the big thing he did was he traded for Kyrie Irving. That was traded away Kyrie Irving. He got Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and Colin Sexton back in that deal. He also signed Kyle Korver.
That's written wrong.
Yeah, I wrote that wrong. He also traded for signed Kyle Korver, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, Kendrick Perkins, and Jetty Osman. In 2018, he used that first-round pick he got for Kyrie Irving to draft Colin Sexton. He also signed Channing Frye, Larry Nance Jr. He re-signed Kevin Love. He traded for George Hill and Rodney Hood. He also traded for Matthew Dellavedova and John Henson. That same season, in 2018, he fired Ty Lue. In 2019, 1 year after trading for Rodney Hood, he traded away Rodney Hood. He also traded Alec Burks and Jordan Clarkson. He traded and then signed Kevin Porter Jr. He drafted Darius Garland. He fired Larry Drew II, who was the interim head coach. He hired John Beilein that season. In 2020, he traded for Andre Drummond. He traded for JaVale McGee. He signed Lamar Stevens, drafted Isaac Okoro, and promoted JB Bickerstaff after John Beilein was let go. In 2021, he traded for Jarrett Allen. He traded for Ricky Rubio. He traded for Isaiah Hartenstein. He traded for Lauri Markkanen. He drafted Evan Mobley. Pretty impressive 2021 campaign.
That was a snapshot
for Evan Mobley.
That's the peak of his
Koby Altman.
moves.
All 5 of those trades. Now it didn't all pan out, but those are 5 good players you acquired in that 2021 year. In 2022, he traded for Rajon Rondo. He traded Rubio for LeVert and then re-signed Ricky Rubio in free agency. He also made the Donovan Mitchell trade. He gave up Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji, and 5 years of draft control in the draft, giving their first-round picks and/or pick swaps to the Utah Jazz. In 2023, bunch of free agent signings. He signed Danny Green and Sam Merrill. Then this offseason, he signed George Niang, Ty Jerome, Tristan Thompson. He executed a sign-and-trade for Max Strus. He drafted Amani Bates. And through the early portions of 2024, he signed Marcus Morris, who we mentioned a little earlier. He also fired JB Bickerstaff. So that's a quick snapshot of some of the moves that Koby Altman has executed throughout his tenure as general manager / director of basketball operations. Yeah. Earl, I'll start with you. We go around however you guys want to
that's good.
Execute this, but has Koby Altman done enough to keep his job, essentially? He is safe, but has he earned the right to be safe?
You know, when we all were on this panel together Monday, and Mike asked this question of, do we believe both should go or how we think it would play out? I said at the time, I think both should be fired, but I think Koby would be safe and JB would end up being gone. I'm kind of changing my tune a little bit because when I look at overall as Koby Altman, as the GM, he has done more than enough to put the Cleveland Cavaliers in a position to have success. You think about it, he took over this team as GM the same year that LeBron bolted for LA. And since then, the Cavaliers have drastically improved every single year, if we want to be technical about the whole situation. I can look at look at this and say, I think that he does a good job of knowing how to evaluate talent, but I do question if he knows how to evaluate, I guess, character or the measure of somebody's heart or the measure of somebody's will to win. Like those unwritten intangibles, right?
Character has never been a problem with Koby Altman.
Well, maybe character.
I mean, with the exception of Amani Bates, I can't think of anybody else.
Well, Kevin Porter Jr.
That even
Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
Because you traded a bunch of second-round picks. You gave up $5 million in cash for a guy that you knew was a head case.
Yeah.
That you really didn't have the infrastructure at the said time to develop him and mature him as a player.
Right.
And then you end up basically kicking him to the curb and moving on. So there has been a few things with the character part of things, but
very few.
But I think 2021 was his peak. I scratched my head at 2020 because if you look, hindsight is always 2020, right? But you go back in that draft. I think that's the same draft, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Had Halliburton and Maxey in it. The Okoro draft.
Isaac Okoro, correct?
Right.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, so when I look at Isaac Okoro, I think Isaac Okoro works hard as a basketball player. Mm-hmm. We've always heard the stories: first one in, last person out, right? I think the dude is committed to being good, but I question if that was the right move. Did you do right in assessing, say, a player, knowing those other guys that was on the board, right? The Drummond trade. Now, as a fan, you get Drummond here. Okay, that's a nice piece. That's a nice move. But Drummond came with that contract that you was not able to move, and you ended up buying him out. So you really got no return on investment for that piece right there.
That was a tough one.
So when I just look at it, I think the thing that puts me over the ledge as yes is the Donovan Mitchell trade. Because Donovan Mitchell's career got better once he got to Cleveland. The Cavaliers won 99 games the last 2 years with Donovan Mitchell as a core part.
Only 4 teams have won more.
And only 4 teams have won more than that. So when I look at that move alone, and my gut feels like Donovan Mitchell is going to sign here long term, that's what put me over the ledge of saying, yes, he deserves to stay.
Now, did you have the Garland max contract on there? Maybe I just missed it.
Not technically. I didn't put it on there, but yeah, they re-signed him to a max extension.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I thought was missing from your list that I would have pointed out.
That's fair.
Because ultimately, that's going to be an albatross around this franchise's neck. It already is. He's saying, reportedly, that if Donovan Mitchell gets his extension, that he's going to ask to be traded. Mm-hmm. Good luck. That's a tough one. Now, I know at the time it seems now in retrospect, it seems more like a move of desperation.
They didn't have a choice. We talked about it with Evan Mobley earlier.
They didn't have a choice.
Handcuffed with those
I mean, it was a tough spot, but I think I know where you are, so I'm going to jump in too. I think I do. I hope I'm not wrong. I'm trying to read your facial expressions here. I think you want him to be shown the door too. So I'm actually going to jump on and piggyback what you said because I agree. Earlier in the week on Monday, I said Koby will survive. I'm not sure he should.
Right.
The fan part of me has cooled down. I've done more research. I've gone back and I've looked at everything. And more importantly, I've also looked at one very important rule that every team owner and general manager has to understand. Know thyself. Here's what that means. You're not Boston. You're not LA. Mm-hmm. You don't have the luxury of changing coaches and general managers every time the wind blows the wrong direction. Cavs have tried that. Not much success. I bring that up because if you don't know thyself and you don't know the draw that is Cleveland, Ohio in the National Basketball Association, you're going to make a fatal flaw in moving on from guys too soon before you have replacements that are definitively better. You're not going to go out and steal Brad Stevens away from the Celtics if you fire Koby Altman. You're not. So you have to understand who is going to consider coming to Cleveland and who is not. Who are the 2 leading candidates to become the coach? And let's list their playoff accomplishments, shall we?
Borrego has never made the playoffs. Kenny Atkinson made it once and was bounced in the first round.
So there you go. Know thyself. So Jimmy's voice yesterday was really powerful. By the way, I've heard from others who have reached out to me and said, damn, Jimmy came at this in a whole different way. I didn't see it. that's what bright minds do. That's what Jimmy Donovan has made a career of doing.
Mm-hmm.
He laid this thing out there in such a way where even me, who on Monday was like, he's got to go. He's 6-11 in the playoffs. Jimmy mentioned the fact that, yeah, he's 6-11. He played the last 2 games without his best player in the entire series, without Jarrett Allen. So do you, when you're doing the autopsy at the end of the year, do you weigh that and take that into account? If they bring in a clearly better head coach, I'm cool with that. But we're giving this, most likely, we're giving this operation to coaches that have had chances already and didn't light the world on fire. So it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I would flip that and make that same argument with Koby Altman. I think, in retrospect, in examining Koby's entire body of work, he's made some really nice moves and decisions to get this team where it is. I think Koby has deserved, he's done enough to deserve the right to stay at least another year. Now, we point out the moves that he made last year didn't work. Should he have known that Max Strus was not going to be able to play the same role in this offense that he played in Miami? Probably. Was that a lost in translation problem between Koby and JB? Maybe. But one way or another, he was miscast here. So we didn't get the same guy that we saw in Miami. What the hell happened to George Niang? Does anybody know?
No. Jay, I know you want to get in here.
I don't know. So, yeah, Jay, I'll pass it to you. But if I'm... And the other thing is, how many of those moves were Dan-driven? And how many of those moves were Koby moves?
The Kevin Love contract was damn sure Dan.
1,000%.
That was him.
That one wasn't. By the way, a lot of those moves were made at a time when Dan was still in the nitty-gritty and in the weeds of the day-to-day. We know the last few years he hasn't been.
The one in particular on that list is the John Beilein hiring.
100%. That was Dan
Dan
Gilbert.
hired. That wasn't Koby.
He's a Michigan guy. Yeah. And Dan thought... What blows my mind about Dan is, and this happens sometimes with rich people when they're out of their lane, Dan's made so many brilliant decisions in business, but a lot of times these rich businessmen make the mistake of thinking, Jerry Jones, hey, I made it work in the business world, in the oil sector, I can do it here. No, you can't. There are also experts that are in this field. Lean on them. The David Blatt and the John Beilein hires alone will be forever blemishes on Dan Gilbert's resume. So I can't blame Koby for that. And the other moves, I don't know. I don't have the intricate workings of how those moves were made. But if I'm casting my vote and there's a room full of 9 people, I'm giving Koby another year.
Well, everybody says some, nice things. And I think, when you laid out the case, there are some things that you can look at and say, okay, well, I like what Koby did here, and there, but there's some drastic errors that you have on that list. First and foremost, he can't run away from the Kyrie Irving situation. Kyrie Irving is right now in the NBA Finals.
Well, that's because of Kyrie.
Kyrie
wanted out.
Here's the thing. LeBron James told him, don't trade him. He said, let me talk to him. Don't trade him.
How does that work out?
Hey, they traded him.
No, I know, but how has it worked out in the past when NBA teams have kept players that didn't want to be there?
Well,
it's a players' league.
Well, listen, you can say that, but what did he get in return for Kyrie Irving? A broke-down Isaiah Thomas? What else did he get in that trade?
He got a draft
Isaiah
pick
Thomas
that turned into Colin Sexton.
And Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder.
That's freaking horrible. That's terrible. You got rid of Jay Crowder.
Isn't that more of an indication of the market for Kyrie at that time?
No.
I don't think so either, because I remember at said time I was like, you got to at least come away with Jaylen Brown. Because I felt like Tatum, Brown, and Kyrie were all on the same level as players.
That was the non-starter for the Celtics.
Well, then you should have stopped for a different team.
Yeah,
so that's the deal.
Maybe.
That deal right there signaled the end of what we was doing as far as competing. Also, LeBron James came out and said during that time period, I want you to trade that 8th pick. I need to get somebody else on this team. We need somebody else. You know what they did? They didn't do it. They said, nope, we got this pick. The Nets end up playing better than we thought they did. That pick turned into Colin Sexton. We had him for 2 years, and then we shipped him. So you really got nothing for it, basically. So you got rid of Colin Sexton. You go looking at, you give him credit for Hartenstein, but you traded Hartenstein. He turns into a piece in New York and beats the brakes off you and Jarrett Allen. He has all these deals where the Isaac Okoro deal. You got perennial. These are all NBA type guys in Halliburton and Maxey. You got Okoro. And then when you get him at number 5, he never becomes better than anything but a role player. You got Niang and Strus. Guess what? What they are. Like, you brought Strus here when you saw how they used him, and you used him totally differently. My problem.
Do you blame JB for that, or is that should Kobe have known that he just wasn't going to be able to do here what he did there?
All the above, letter D. Like, I'm looking at all of them. And when when it goes, and when you look at this situation, this is the thing I always get and I said I was going to push back on this. When people say this is the biggest cop-out in the world. Well, I'm not going to move away from that until I figure out if I got something guaranteed on the other side that's better. That ain't how life works, boys and girls. Do you stay in relationships where you know it's bad? I've been in one. Horrible. Fighting, arguing, don't like each other, come back to the house, look at each other.
Yeah, but
hold on. Do I say, you know what? I'm going to stay in this bad relationship because I don't have a new girlfriend yet that I could just trade and be better than that. No, what you say is, this ain't what it's going to be. This ain't the way, the path that I want to take to be successful in life.
Can I tell you why that doesn't work?
Why don't it?
Because when you leave a bad relationship, being alone is an option.
Yes.
Being alone here without a GM or a coach is not an option.
But here's the thing.
We have to replace the coach.
But here's the thing. When I could go, and you got to have faith in your organization to have a plan set forward to know what is a good coach for your future or a bad coach. And just because you haven't come up with no game plan doesn't mean that you don't move on from something bad.
So wing it. Make it up as you go along.
No, I ain't talking about winging it. I'm talking about understanding it. A plan. The reason I don't want Kobe here is because he don't have a plan. What is his plan? Tell me what is it? That's the thing I've been saying from Jump Street. It ain't the fact that, Kobe's a bad GM or, JB is the worst coach in the world. It's they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan of the way they play. They don't have a plan of the way they scout players. They don't have the plan of how they get coaches or what their protocol is. They don't have a plan of developing anybody. You tell me, all you can point to is this. We won more games than 4 people. Everybody else we won the most games. At the end of the day, Nick Sabans of the world, Greg Popovich's of the world, don't sit there and say, well, we were only worse than 4 people. You know what they say? That's not acceptable. And the reason why LeBron James consistently holds people to the flames is because some of y'all not built for it. Some of you think 4th is good or 3rd is good. And just because we haven't had traditional success in the city of Cleveland, we were better than the Heat this year. We don't care about that. When you play the game, you play to win. You don't play to come in 5th or 4th or 2nd most or since when. Hey, you know what? The quote I hear. Well, since 2014, we've been. No. Did you bring that trophy home? Did you get it? And is JB going to make you closer to get to that trophy? If the answer is no, you can't be emotional. You ain't built for it. Sometimes you got to shake somebody's hands and say, you know what, I appreciate for what you did, but this is where the buck stops. We need somebody to get us higher than that.
Would you agree, though, that there has to be a level of progression? You don't go from 21 wins to an NBA title in 4 years. It's very difficult to do that. I just
saw the Timberwolves do it.
They haven't won anything yet.
But they're in the Western Conference Finals.
They are in the Western
Conference
Finals. But like you just said, don't tell me you finished 2nd.
But listen,
that's not good enough.
I see a superstar. I see a guy that
we have a superstar.
Who?
Donovan Mitchell's not a superstar?
Yes, we got that. But guess what they got? They got 5 other people.
Well, all right, so let me ask you this.
This Cavs roster is very deep.
But to that point, right, let me ask you this. And this is a little pushback on what you said because I agree with a lot of what you said. But my question I've been asking myself over the last week, is it knowing how to assess talent or the development of the talent? And this is why I say this.
Falls on the coach.
So this is the point I'm trying to make. You can look at the Cavaliers and say the Cavaliers got some pretty nice pieces, right? Karis LeVert is a bucket getter. We didn't see him get 50 in the NBA multiple times, right?
Yes.
A guy that can get his own shot, create off the dribble. Darius Garland. Now, we know Darius Garland what this year was, right? We've seen Darius Garland drop 50. We've seen Darius Garland become an all-star. We've seen Jarrett Allen become an all-star. We know what we have in Donovan Mitchell, right? There are pieces there. The problem is the pieces don't fit. And now I'm asking myself questions like, okay, did Koby Altman identify the talent correctly and JB Bickerstaff just didn't develop it? And this is why. We all sat here last Browns offseason, and we talked about Andrew Berry going shopping and getting Kevin Stefanski the groceries. And it was up to Kevin Stefanski to go in the kitchen and cook up a meal worth eating, right? You can argue Koby Altman did the same thing. coming into the season, the Cavs lacked shooters. That was our Achilles heel. We didn't have depth on the
went out and
bench,
got 2 of them.
and we didn't have shooters. So you go out there and you get shooters. Them dudes play horrible for the most part in the playoffs. Is that Kobe assessing it wrong, or is that JB not putting those guys in the right situation to have success? These are questions I'm starting to ask myself.
No, that is the question.
All the above. Why can't
And that's why it's hard for me to say,
But
okay.
see, so I think I'm in agreement with your base point on JB. But here's the thing. If you do fire Kobe, you're now starting over, and you're almost undoing the work that's been done over the last 4 years. Look, no one's happy with the Cavs getting bounced in the second round.
No.
I was most disappointed about their decision to tank. That, to me, was the precursor to a debacle. You want Boston in the second round?
But
good luck with that.
But Jay, I just told you, that goes back to the plan. Who does that?
Well,
see what I'm saying?
I'm told that was an organizational decision.
So
it wasn't a spur of the moment, in the moment, JB saying, yeah, let's sit everybody. That was discussed before the game.
So they sat in a room and actually came up with that.
This is what I was told. Organizational decision. So if that's true, and that's the case.
JB said in the post game, me and Mike was there, that the plan coming into the game was to play the main guys for 3 quarters and let the guys who typically don't get no run play in the fourth.
And that is why people have such a nasty taste in their mouth. That's why when we talked about that Hornets game, we talked about it for 3 weeks, because something inside of you don't vibe with that. Something inside of you like, dang, that's kind
I hated that decision. Maybe we're the Indiana Pacers right now in the Eastern Conference Finals. Who knows how things play out differently? You don't know.
And when you get a veteran like Marcus Morris, who's a rough rider in this league, that's been around a lot of organizations, when he comes out with a straight face with a baseball cap on, like, yeah, man, I see it. It ran its course. These cats were swimming at the end of the year. They thought that was going to save them. They knew. They said, oh, we got him. We're going to catch Orlando, and the people going to say, we won that series, and that's going to save everybody.
I just feel like everything that you're saying, I think you're accurate, but it's more of an indictment on JB than it is Kobe Altman.
And I agree with that. I exactly what you just said. A lot of these decisions in the micro, I put on JB. The fact that Max Strus was able to be so effective in what Miami ran and look like a completely different guy here.
Out of position the whole season.
That's JB.
He was out of position the entire season.
You're the coach. Figure out how to use him like Miami did. We have personnel options here.
Don't when you sit down as a manager or a general manager and you talking about different free agents and different guys you're going to bring in, don't y'all sit down with notes and graphs and tape and say, this is the way he's being used here. Let's see if how do you vision him being used here?
I think yes, in theory, yes, but I think every team also does it differently. There are teams, and I'm going to cross sport here. There are teams where the front office is so driving the bus, the manager is handed a sheet at the end of the day and said, make it work. Now, I don't think that's ever going to work. I don't. There is one very, very high-profile Major League Baseball team that does it exactly that way. And I think that is a hindrance to their ultimate success. You have to be hand in glove. I think the Browns are doing that right now, even though I'm not quite sure what Paul DePodesta's role is and what power he has. I think for the most part, everybody sees the point on the horizon in the same spot. I don't know how the Cavs have made those decisions typically, but to answer your question, that's how it should work. Hey, we got a guy. Could Max Strus do here what he did in Miami? That conversation, I hope, was made.
Maybe we have that before.
You better hope it was.
Somebody answered it wrong. Somebody said, yeah, we can do that here.
I don't know about y'all. The three biggest negatives to me when it came to Koby Altman, I thought you should have got way more for Kyrie. Here's a move
that's a valid point.
Here's a move that Mike didn't bring up, and I thought about it during this conversation. That same season, we made some in-season trades before the trade deadline that ironically cleared the path for LeBron to be able to go sign with the LA Lakers.
Sure, we did.
That was a bad move. And
but we couldn't have known that at the time.
Yeah, maybe, but we knew that the Lakers cap situation was horrible. The third move, and I really feel strong about this, you should have fired JB Bickerstaff last year. You had a better pool of coaches to pick from than you did this year. Because this year, it's a bunch of second-trillion dudes or dudes that's unproven commodities.
And again,
when last year you had guys like Nick Nurse and Ime Udoka, et cetera. So
the piece of the puzzle we don't have that we desperately need, and I know that there are a lot of different – I've talked to 3 Cavs beat writers within the last 6 days, 5 days. And the message is not the same. what role does Dan currently play in the decision making? And I got 3 different answers.
No one knows. It's the
No
great
one
unknown.
knows. And because of that, and Dan knows, and everybody in the organization likely knows, but Koby certainly knows. So perhaps Dan is saying, this didn't work out, and that was my move, and I got to wear that. I can't put that on your resume. So ultimately, who's making the call on Koby? It's Dan. It has to be.
Jay, you know what I think? Jay,
There's
you know
no one
what I
above
think?
him.
There's no one above him.
This is just gut instinct today on Friday, May 24th. I think that a conversation has already been had, and I think that because it was reported by Brian Windhorst that the Cavs plan on offering Spider that deal
Right.
at the conclusion of the NBA Finals. I think a backdoor handshake
Do you
agreement
think it's been done?
has already been done. And I think that's the reason why Koby Altman is still employed, because if Donovan Mitchell was out of here, he'd be out of here. And I think that's the reason why JB Bickerstaff is no longer employed.
Well, Jason Lloyd said
I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
There's a lot of
Jason
validity
Lloyd
to what
sat
you
here
said.
and said, at the end of the day, you can say you wanted JB gone, or you could give up information to say that you want JB to stay. But at the end of the day, if the players would have said that they wanted JB Bickerstaff, they'd still be here. So
Yes, you're right about that.
It's not. It ain't on me or whether we think he's the greatest coach. The people that he was coaching in that locker room said, we don't have an opportunity to reach our maximum potential with JB Bickerstaff.
And that's why I think we're all in agreement that move had to be made.
Yeah.
I do think it was a year too late. I do. I think perhaps the condition of his contract and knowing that he's going to be paid through 26 had something to do with that. The fact that they won 51 games last year probably had something to do with that. But to me, they overlooked the biggest single piece of glaring evidence that said he had to go, and that was what we saw in New York.
I'll paint a picture for you, and for the audience that's out there watching after this show, Google Marcus Moore's post-game conference, Game 5 against Orlando. Okay? Try to paint this as best as I can. Me and Mike covered the Cavs throughout the entire playoffs, every home game. We did pre- and post-game conference, press conferences, right? Marcus Morris came out in his post-game press conference after he balled out in Game 5. And I was sitting right there, and I was reading his body language, and I was just listening to him talk. And he talked about how he was starting to question himself, question why he was here, question a lot of things, because he was under the assumption, I thought the Cavs brought me here because I was a part of the puzzle. I was a piece to the puzzle, and that, you brought me here for this particular time, playoff time. He couldn't understand why it took for an injury to happen for him to see the court.
Yeah.
And he would just allude to different things that he was saying in that press conference. To me, it seemed like little shots at JB Bickerstaff as far as how he was being used.
Well, he confirmed that with his...
et cetera. And so when I just, seeing that little clip, it kind of was like, this is another nail in the coffin, so to speak, right? There's so much to be said about how the players felt about JB Bickerstaff, from practices, the system or lack thereof that they were running. And it just seemed like his message, man, it started to fall on deaf ears. And when players make the decision collectively that they don't want to play for you, to me, that's the ultimate death sentence that a coach can have. And so, yeah, Jimmy Donovan might have been right in a lot, but that right there is the bottom line. If the players don't want to play for you,
no, you're right.
That's it.
And the other thing was Jimmy, and part of his argument for keeping JB was his regular season success. And I think we have documented on this show over the last year plus.
Doesn't matter.
That it doesn't mean a hill of beans. You could lose 20 games less than the 1 seed, and all you have to do is win 1 road game in each series, and you're the NBA champ.
This is where my fandom comes in to play all the time. I don't care. When it comes to the Cavs in particular, I don't care about regular season success, and I'm never finna do victory laps because we made it to the second round. All of us here know what it feels like for this franchise to be called NBA champions. Yep. And I get it. Everybody's going to always say, well, LeBron was a part of that. LeBron was a part of it. It is what it is, man, but it's just hard to accept anything less when you know what it feels like to be called champion.
Mike, you want to chime in, and you should.
Yeah, just last thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next domino to fall. Running through all of Kobe's moves, not everything works out. You're going to have some wins, you're going to have some losses.
Well, look at the Guardians, who get it right way more than not.
You're going to have some home runs, you're going to have some doubles,
the last 2 years,
some
their
singles.
free agency buys have been an absolute dumpster fire, and they're in first place.
The one thing that did stick out from going through that whole exercise, it's damn near impossible to get free agents to come to Cleveland. Almost all the top-tier talent they've acquired, sent out either via the draft or via trade. And executing those deals, whether you like some of them, whether they worked, whether they didn't. Even Max Strus, who was the biggest quote-unquote free agent signing they've had in essentially a decade, was via
minus
sign
the
and trade.
minus the LeBron years, maybe ever.
Maybe, yeah, seriously.
Like LeBron was the free agent magnet. Guys want to go win titles. They don't want to come to Cleveland, Ohio, and finish fourth.
And so I just think when we look at his overall tenure, you have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt,
Fair.
knowing you
That's
are
why I
handcuffed
said
in
know
certain
thyself.
aspects.
You're not Boston. You're not LA. You don't have the luxury of throwing your franchise legacy out there. And also the other thing too is, and it's funny, I talk to athletes in all the sports. I think in the NBA more than any other team, more than any other league, because in the NFL it's not really a factor. Free agents will go where the money is, and everything is fairly equal because
They
there's
need
a
the
salary
money, it's
cap.
not guaranteed.
They don't care that they're not playing on the coasts. Baseball players are also okay with not playing on the coast. They want the money. NBA guys know what the money is. It's going to be the same wherever they go. They want location. They want Miami. They want Boston. They want LA. They want New York. They do not want Cleveland, Ohio.
I will give you this, and I'll push back a little bit. When you use that as an organization, Jay says it, you got to know who you are. Well, if you know you're not going to get free agents and it's never been a free agent market, then you damn sure as well better be all in on drafting and all in on development. And if you don't
And trades.
and being smart, and if you're not doing that, you can't sit up here and be upset. Well, hey, we're not getting free agents. No, that's not who you are. You're going to have to develop, and you got to put everything you got into that, and you can't miss.
That's why the
it.
coaching role is so much more.
You know who
That's
had
fair,
me
Junior.
fooled back in the
100%
day?
fair.
As we talk about like Max Strus being a big signing, Larry Hughes, man.
Oh,
when the
I
cat
know.
when the
Oh,
Cavs
boy.
signed Larry Hughes,
He was in music videos.
he was in
and everything.
with Kelly Rowland.
I was like, oh, we got the Kelly Rowland, Lily and Kelly, John Hughes on.
To your point about, because I do make the point that the coasts in the NBA and those prime locations have such a bigger advantage. But I'll also say this: when you look at Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and I'm going to throw San Antonio in there because historically, I don't want them to be looked at as what they are now. There was a time when San Antonio had a dynasty, and they did it how? Because they had Pop. What's going on right now in Minnesota and Oklahoma City? They've got two phenomenal coaches. When you have the coaching piece of it, you can overcome a mistake here or there in a draft or a poor trade. But in a city like Cleveland, you better have an absolute top line, front of the parade coach to make up for these other deficiencies.
What's the general manager in Philly name? Is this Daryl Morey?
Daryl
Yeah,
Morey,
Morey.
He used to
was
be
in Houston.
Didn't he used to be in OKC at one point?
He
I
may
don't
have been.
think so. No, he's been in Houston for a while.
Who was the guy that was in OKC?
OKC was
It's Presti.
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 Yes,
Shout
Right.
out to Emerson basketball.
Is he still there?
My God, Sam.
Yeah, he's the best GM in basketball.
You're probably right.
They
And
don't
look
lost.
what they can
So,
overcome
to
because
that,
of it.
to that point, that's the blueprint. If you're a small market franchise, that's the blueprint. This is a small market franchise that understands I might not be the most attractive destination to free agents.
Right.
So I need to make sure that player development and I have a healthy culture. Scouting, and I have a system here. Right?
He's
That's
an
how
Emerson
small
guy,
market
isn't he?
teams do it.
He is an Emerson guy.
So, Mike, why don't you just step up, become the next Emerson guy to change the NBA?
There are plenty of other Emerson guys in the NBA who will do that way before I do. So
Who?
No, there are a lot out there.
there's two GMs right now. Will Dawkins and Washington's an Emerson guy. It's like 6 video coordinators.
The
couple
video
assistant
coordinators,
coaches.
that's the path, isn't it, Mike?
Well, that's the SPO path. Yeah.
I mean, if you follow what Spoelstra was able to do, those guys are the guys that are
Miami's video coordinator. Where'd he go to school, Jay?
Emerson.
There you go. All right, let's take a break real quick. Let's start with the next domino to fall for their Cavs after